folk horror. Um, my little one, him as my sensei. Oh, I like that. The brothers Sith, Master and Apprentice. Oh, okay. So the freakiness of folk horror. My youngest, it's spooky. All my kids have spooky names. Go figure. Is a huge horror fan. All my kids are horror fans, but my little one is like a super horror fan. And I mentioned like I could do folk horror. I talk about that, and she got really excited. I'm gonna tell you something right off the top of my head. I am terrified of folk horror movies. They absolutely scare me. I don't like watching them. Like, I don't mind watching Freddy. I don't mind watching Jason. I don't mind watching like gigantic killer sharks and stuff like that. Even Pinhead. These movies terrify me because they're kind of grounded in reality in some cases, and that's why I really don't like watching them. And we'll see some examples when we get into it. So, what is folk horror? As you can see, this is what we did in the 80s. We kind of land up, parade it, wore lots of creepy stuff and all that. No, this is a scene from one of the better folk horror movies, The Wicker Man, which we'll get into. But yeah, what is folk horror? Well, believe it or not, it kind of got defined in the 70s with a movie called The Devil's Touch. It uses folklore to invoke fear and foreboding. So, obviously, folk horror, folklore. So, think of movies like Sleepy Hollow. That actually falls into the folk horror genre because the Sleepy Hollow is a folklore legend. Anything that has something like that would fall into this genre. Supernatural sometimes plays in, sometimes doesn't. Later movies it does lately. Usually it's in isolated rural settings because you think about it. You have a folklore by these country bumpkins. They tell this story, whatever. This lonely couple goes up there, and lo and behold, comes true kind of thing, basically. Beliefs and action of people is a big focus. It's not so much as a big scary monster or a big whatever kind of thing. It shows the actions of people around it that really make it terrifying. Excuse me. And that's why I find folk horror really disturbing. Because some of the best folk horror, the monsters are the people. And that's just, like I said, it's too real for me, basically. When you watch some of these films and you see some of these cults, peoples and stuff like that, it's like, no way, man. Forget that nonsense. But back in 1970, in a magazine called Kind of Winkly, a reviewer used folk horror to describe The Devil's Touch. It was one of the first ones that ever came out. They talk about the unholy trinity of folk horror. These are the granddaddies of the films that set the pace for what we know today, basically. So, three British films. That's defined as the granddaddies. They were been coined as the unholy trinity. They all have different kind of topics and plots, but they all share that isolated community aspect and are quite gory. The three films are Blood and Satan's Claw, Witchfinder General, and The Wicker Man. Now, Blood and Satan's Claw was first out of the gate. Supposed to be three loosely connected stories written in one subplot. It came out in social reviews. Compared to Lovecraft's work, now a cult film. This was basically the first out of the gate and kind of really disturbing. The plot is it follows the residents of a rural village whose youth fall under the influence of a demonic presence after a local farmer unearths a mysterious deformed skull buried in a field. Like I said, isolated folklore. People didn't know what they were watching. Like I said, to see these innocent young people fall under this influence of this strange skull, this folklore, some cult aspects are involved, and it got creepy really fast. It actually got like I said, censored in quite a few countries due to its content. You thought that was bad? This one was the worst. The Witchfinder General from 1968, starring Vincent Price. Yes. Based upon a 6/6 novel. Very cheap film. £100,000. It's the fictionalized account of the murderous witch hunting exploits of Matthew Hopkins. Plot follows a soldier who pursues Hopkins as assistant as they prey on his fiancee. It's a very, very sadistic film. I mean, it is very gory. And you got set basically isolated village. You got some like the folklore about witches and stuff going on. It was actually censored in the UK for the longest time. It's crazy. Pretty much, Braz. There are exceptions in these early films where there's a demon involved, but it's very few and far between. Usually, you find out that in these films here, the folk horror, it's the people that are the true horror. Like this time, in this case, Vincent Price is the actual terror, and the things that he does on screen to these women and people, for '68, it's hard to watch. Very popular at the U.S. grindhouses and drive-ins. Usually, but you get the odd demon and stuff, but usually, you always see it switches up a bit, basically. Of course, here's some of the stills I can show from that. Very much a period piece. I don't know if it's worth actually watching. Like I said, it is kind of dated, but I do know that if you're looking for something really twisted, this is a twisted film. But if you're going to watch one film of the Holy Trinity, watch The Wicker Man. This film is, oh my God. Yeah, I know, Braze. But this one blows me away. I've seen this one. And I went to this cold, not knowing the plot. And yeah, I said it was just, first it was weird, but it was so bizarre and twisted, like that. That he was actually, that's all they had in the '60s was film, and film was at a premium, so they didn't want to waste any film. So a lot of these films weren't that long. But this one was truly disturbing. Stars Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee makes this film. So basically, a police officer visits an isolated Scottish island looking for a missing girl. He's appalled to find Hampstead Island are now practicing some form of Celtic paganism. He starts investigating further, and I cannot tell you the ending of the film, but if you've got time to watch it and you like twisted human horror, this one's for you. Well received by critics out of the gate. The studio wanted a happier ending. Directors told them to take a leap. Huge legacy, great film. Ranked 6th greatest British horror film of all time. Even got included in the 2012 Summer Olympics opening ceremony. You know what, Braz? This thing's had so many releases. I'm not surprised that it upscales well. Like this one is held up as basically the mother of folk horror films. Christopher Lee. No doubts about that. It even looks disturbing. Like I said, these are images from the film. And it's just basically, first you're kind of like, well, this is weird. I think it's a crime drama. And then it just spirals right out of control. That's what I like about the old films, bro. I got to agree with you. I prefer film over digital. I know. Because film doesn't pixelate. I know. Digital does. Unfortunately, though, a lot of the films do deteriorate over time. So we got to digitize them. But like I said, when I get a chance to see an actual 35mm print, I'm there for it. But again, this is a great film. I cannot recommend this one enough if you want to try out folk horror. However, asterisk. Nicolas Cage did a 2006 remake of The Wicker Man. If the original was great, this one's at the very opposite end of the scale of not being great. It was terrible. Everything about this film was horrible. These scenes you're seeing became internet memes. And even Nicolas Cage called it absurd. And like I said, if you ever see this on TV or someone gives you free tickets to go see it, don't go see it. Welcome into Geeks versus Geeks. Just writing down some folk horror stuff. Just telling people to not go see the new Wicker Man. Go see the old Wicker Man. I love Nicolas Cage, but he made this a time where he needed money. It's a horrible film. It's absolutely horrible. I don't know what he was thinking. He has said in an interview though. the bees. Why is it burnt? I don't know why it's burned in my head. I can those lines. He has said that of all films he wish could revisit, he'd want to revisit this one and take it to Japan. Thanks, Nick. Don't do that. Oh man, let's show it out here quick there. Geeks versus Geeks. Yeah, so I'm gonna write down some of my folk horror film recommendations. Like I said, these are very hard to watch for me. Oh, everybody knows about it, right? Oh, I better show people here. Hello, Rackham. Welcome in, man. Yeah, I know. It was, thank goodness it didn't last too long. It was like in and out. Everybody, go check out Mr. Rackham. I'll tell you what, though. Like I said, I don't like folk horror because they absolutely terrify me. I went to Halloween Horror Nights and I wasn't scared. Some of these films I did watch and I was like, I never again. Again, Sleepy Hollow, The Ritual, Blair Witch Project. They all count as folk horror films. Anything based on folklore, local legend, that's what it falls into. A lot of people think it's just cults. It can be more than that. So, here we go. Let's run you down some recommendations so you want to go check out. In honor of my good friend, Mr. Duncan, gotta go to the 80s. Children of the Corn. Stephen King wrote a short story. And what it is basically, there's an entity in the cornfield called He Who Walks Behind the Rows. Not rolls. The town's children ritually murder all the town's adults and anyone that comes to town to ensure a successful corn harvest. So, folk horror movies are creepy. Children are creepy. This is creepy. Agreed, Pam. They have a game and music. I cannot tell you the twisted that they did to me when I rented this film. I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like, okay, that's not too bad. I rented the sucker. Oh my god, it's disturbing. And again, if you're some of my younger audience and you want to watch something older, check this out. But the guy who played Malachi, that's Courtney Gaines. He's truly terrifying. He was terrifying in the film. He was terrifying outside of the film when he was in character. I guess he got the role by threatening a casting director with a knife as part of the role kind of thing. Truly classic horror. And like I said, check it out if you're looking for something older. But man, is it ever disturbing, in my opinion. If you got other films that you've seen, let me know. Shut them out. I'm just running through the ones that I know that are really good. He's just terrifying. Absolute Pam. You just get shivers down the back of your spine. You want to turn the lights on in the house and you're watching it. The Witch. Excellent. Excellent folk horror film. Starring my girlfriend, Anya Taylor-Joy. She doesn't know it yet. Has been ranked one of the best films of 2010. Grossed $40 million on $4 million. And the director shot it only natural light. There are no artificial lights in the sun. He used sunlight, he used candles, everything but artificial light. Scores 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's basically the plot is in 1630s New England. Follows a Puritan family who encounters forces of evil in the woods beyond their farm. Absolutely wonderfully terrifying. Outlander? I take that one, Duncan. Absolutely. But this one is another one if you haven't seen it, and I highly recommend it. Again, really, really good. And not just a good folk horror film, but I agree. One of the best films, horror films of the last decade. 100%. This one, okay, I liked it. So here's the thing. It's 2.5 hours long. So if you're looking for that 90-minute, 78-minute, quick burn in and out, it's not going to be here. But if you can sit through the 2.5 hour long running time, you will be treated to one heck of a mind scare. There's a lot of twists and turns. It was a commercial and critical success. It is South Korean, of course. Duncan, time for me to plant a nice cornfield in the Gutty estate. Yeah, let's not do that. This one's basically set in a rainy mountain village. Follows police officers who investigates a bizarre and violent behavior. Seen around by a new mysterious disease. Suspicion turns to a Japanese stranger. Oh, it's Japanese, pardon me. Who recently moved to town and may think is a ghost or demon in disguise. Highly, like I said, highly praised by audiences. Like I said, I do enjoy foreign horror, and this is one done right. If you're tired of something from North America, give this a spin. Yeah, we're not doing any cornfields in the Uncle Gutty estate. COVID-19. Well, the infected or viral horror is also another genre that was in the late 90s too. I think was, once COVID came out, kind of passed over, right? Like you said, you had Quarantine, you had what's it? Doomsday, Outbreak. Monkeys and viruses are popular in the 90s. This one is weird, but weird in a good way because it starts off as a crime drama. Basically, you got a British soldier who joined his old friends and he's working as a contract killer. As the film goes on, it shifts from crime drama to folk horror and gets really weird and twisted at the end. After the 1990s, the folk horror genre kind of got thrown to the side and zombies are popular. This kept it going. It's not the best film, but it's the most unique film I can think of. And if you want to look for something off the beaten path, try this out because you will not see the ending coming. Not necessarily brass. Folk is a term to like folklore. So any kind of folklore, folk legends, like I said, I mentioned Sleepy Hollow. Let's say you've got the Witch in the Woods. Any kind of stuff like that fits into it. And of course, pagan rites, cults. That's all of the folk horror stuff. No, yeah, actually, what it is, Braz, is a lot of that folk horror takes time during like the witches in the 1600s and stuff like that. So that's where that folk kind of comes from. Hence, the Witchfinder General and the Wicker Man and stuff like that. Uh, but you raise a good point though, because modern folklore isn't exactly as strong as what it used to be, right? Everybody has those local legends and tales like the Jersey Devil and stuff that they're actually, used to tell around, flashlights at slumber parties. It's not as popular as it used to be anymore. So basically, it's a huge kind of like, um, I wouldn't say gap, but hard to keep it alive. Geeks start enjoying horror movies overall. Don't know why, but still enjoy the occasional semi-lighthearted one like Dead Snow, Dog Soldier, stuff like that. I'll tell you why. The reason probably why you stopped enjoying them is because they start kind of feeling the same over and over again. The movies you described, Dead Snow, Dog Soldiers, I've seen, are unique, special twists on old horror tropes. So that's why. So you got to go off the beaten track to find those horror movies that kind of give you that little spark. Because I felt the same way. It is because of the large amount of choice we got today, Brad. That's why the folk horror doesn't exactly pop up. And I think because since we're a connected world, we're not as fearful as we used to be, right? Like, talking about Sleepy Hollow or the Blair Witch Project. Oh yeah, we're not that kind of stuff. We got cell phones and stuff. Trust me, I felt the same way for a long time, geeks. I had to go find some stuff off the beaten track. I watch a lot of South Korean horror. And that's where I find my thrills because it keeps me guessing and it's fresh. And you're right, Brats. It's hard to make a very scary folk horror today. If you're going to make it, you got to set back in the old times because, you can get away from the technology crutches and all that. Come play with us, Uncle Gutty, forever and ever. Yeah, right. Pass, Duncan. Well, I got two more here. Hereditary. Again, this one was probably the worst of all the ones I saw. Like Booker Man wasn't too scary. This one, no, no, not happening. Not friggin' happening. Strong performance in this one. Made a boatload of money. Great film score. There's debatable if it's horror elements or not, folk horror elements or not, because the girl gets possessed and there's not really kind of folklore in it, but it does fall in the folklore genre, so to speak. It's an A24 film made by Ari Aster. And like I said, I saw it once and never again. I'm not watching this thing ever again. It took me a long time to forget most of it, too. This thing is friggin' scary. It does drag on some spots, I must admit. I must admit there, Rakim. It does drag. But when it doesn't drag, oh. I got one more for you guys. And gals. And everybody in between. Midsummer. This is my modern bar for folk horror. Everything about this film is, well, I wouldn't say perfect, but basically brings together elements of a good horror story, a good scare, terrifying human aspects. Everything about it is good. Basically, it does follow the plot of, well, I would say follow the plot, but it's heavily inspired by The Wicker Man. Couple travels to Sweden for a midsummer festival, fall into a cult, and it gets pretty dark at the end. I'll tell you that much. It reminds me basically of Baz Luhrmann film. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. There's in between this film. There's no like it was there. Again, another A24 film. Again, by Ari, the same guy who did Hereditary. So they're onto something basically. I think this is my kid's favorite folk horror film. Like I said, that one that really sticks with them. What's your opinion of the Candyman movies? I always thought they were good movies. First one, Lost Folks, second, the newest version. Oh, Q Swin. Candyman movies, that to me is folk horror. Because you got an urban legend, Candyman, and you got a compelling villain. I love Toby Todd. I thought the first one was unique and brilliant and somewhat terrifying, but not enough because it's hard to believe that the folklore could exist in an urban setting like that. As Brad's mentioned, basically, it was kind of hard. But you're right. Once the first one came out, the other two kind of like, yeah, okay, we'll just kind of keep throwing, we'll keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Yeah, first one was a cool premise. The remake, I was disappointed with because I think, was it Peel? The guy who did Us, all that, he was involved in that and just didn't land. The first one was excellent. But we've all been there, right? We've all seen a really good horror movie that had a great initial premise. And then when they start churning out sequels, you're like, really? We're going to do this now? We're going to go through far? And again, Get Out was good. I'm a big fan of Get Out, Us, and those films. But like I said, we've got other films. Like I'm sure people have seen The Blair Witch Project, The Ritual, like I said, Sleepy Hollow. There's one coming out now called The Frogman, which is going to be like a found footage film. I just saw that. It looks interesting and all that. Hey, Sin, thanks for coming in, man. We're just winding up folk horror film talk here, actually. Like I said, Houston brought up a great point about the Candyman. Candyman 1 was excellent.
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women.
You know it, Arnold. Carrie is a good one. Carrie is more supernatural. And like I said, folk horror is hard to actually categorize films too sometimes. I can fall in multiple ones. Midsummer, it's folk horror, there's no question. But when you think about stuff like, what's it one? I was going to say, even Sleepy Hollow, it's kind of supernatural folk horror-ish. Like, we generally steer towards cults and stuff like that. But like I said, if you've got some good horror films, let me know. I'm always looking for good stuff to watch. I prefer sci-fi and fantasy, but who knows? What would I consider Final Destination? Final Destination. Well, Final Destination, basically, if you want to classify that as... Well, there's a couple one. You call that basically a gore fest. It is a gore fest. And if you want to get really, really nitpicky, basically, you call that basically like the old fortune-telling gypsy kind of trope. It's generic. I think it's basically like a gore fest. There should be ones basically based upon fate and chance, but I don't think there is actually. Definition of folk horror sin is anything that involves folklore or a cult or urban isolation where humans are the primary monsters. I got LG. It was nice watching. Ooh, nice. American Horror Story. American Horror Story. American Horror Story is a great example, Q-Swin, because some of that would be folk horror. The Roanoke series, that's definitely folk horror. That's based upon the Roanoke legend. 100%. So that one would fit. Some would depend, basically. Typically, folk horror has some kind of basis of legend or tales, basically. So depending on the story you get, might possibly. So let's say, for example, the first one was based upon the Winchester House, one that's haunted by ghosts and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the movie of that. You consider that folk horror if you want it. It's based upon actually a famous folklore, some famous folklore. Like I said, doesn't really define any known category, but you can go crazy with it. Krampus, I consider that folk horror, or even legend horror, but folk horror fit in that one. A terrible horror movie that's campy, Bloody Murder 2, Close the Camp. Yeah, that's a horrible one. If you want a really horrible one, I will counter and go with Slime Bowl Babes of the Bowl-O-Rama. It's on Tubi. If you make it through that, I salute you. As Q-Swin's mentioning here, the first season of American Horror Tale was good. Other seasons are hit and miss. Yeah, like I said, sometimes at the point now with that series, you're kind of watching to see what happens. I've not seen a really good horror film as of late. I've been watching, like I said, I think the last one, so the last one I've seen, just not talking about folk horror, All of Us Are Dead, the South Korean zombie show on Netflix. That was the last best horror film I saw, only because some of the humans wound up being the villain, basically. Yeah. Like I said, All of Us Are Dead is excellent horror if you're looking for something. Sweet Home isn't bad. I'm watching that, but it's not, I would consider, strong horror. But yeah. Friday the 13th could teeter the line. Jason has a series going on, becoming more of a scary camp story. 100%. Train to Busan's another excellent film. Please go watch that. It's a character-driven drama. Again, Friday the 13th is technically, Friday the 13th has fallen into what's called the slasher camp. Absolutely. That's a slasher film. The primary focus there is that you have an undead slasher on the loose. That's slasher horror. It's funny how some people try to category stuff, but yeah, Friday the 13th is absolutely slasher horror. Train to Busan is more zombies, but what's best about Train to Busan, the zombies aren't the set piece. It's the character development and what's going on with people around the zombies that you focus on. Much like All of Us Are Dead, it's still got some good scares and a little bit of gore in it, but it is highly entertaining. Actually, you raise a good point, Sin. So Sin, the host, likes slashers. I like Splatstick, so Army of Darkness, Reanimator. Those are all my kind of jams, basically. I like those. Or I like watching what's called cosmic horror. Those are my absolute favorite. Event Horizon, Color Out of Space. Those are my movies, and that's my horror genre preferred of. I know Penn doesn't like watching horror at all. He absolutely doesn't like watching horror at all, and that's okay. Neither does my wife, which is funny. I don't like watching certain horror. My wife doesn't like watching it all. We don't mind going to Halloween Horror Nights and having a blast there. But I'm a cosmic horror fan. Anything from beyond time and space, like I said, Lovecraft stuff, that's my shtick. That was fun, guys. Gals.